Welcome to the land of adventure. Let's read the text. We are not afraid to die if we can all be together, written by Gordon Cook and Alan East. Gordon Cook was highly inspired by Captain James Cook, who had traveled round the world some 200 to 250 years earlier, and he wanted to duplicate his steps, along with his wife Mary and two children, Jonathan and Suzanne. He included two more crew members in his journey, Larry Vigil and Herb Siegler. All four decided to travel round the world in Wave Walker. It was a professionally designed boat equipped with all the necessary things, and merrily they began the journey from England. The journey went on peacefully for some time, and then, of course, they happily enjoyed Christmas. At times, the speed of the wind, the speed of the waves baffled them. The waves were very enormous, they were mast high, but they had tested themselves in the roughest of seas. They had spent 16 long years in honing their seafaring skills. They had equipped themselves with all the dangers that could be there, and so the speed of the winds did bother them. The size of the waves was alarming, but they were there to take all the necessary precautions. They decided to double lash everything. The storm sail was pulled down. The speed of the boat was slowed down. They attached the lifelines. The crew members put on waterproof clothes and life jackets. So with all these precautions, they felt that this time would get over after some time. They waited and waited, but then it was the sign of disaster. All of a sudden, a very huge wave just came in front of them and tossed basically the narrator, Captain Cook, and he flew overboard. The boat was capsizing, and then, as chance would have it, something miraculous happened. Though he was treated like a rag doll, he was back to the ship once again, in definitely a very bad shape. His teeth were broken, his mouth was filled with blood, but then somehow he managed to reach the wheel and hold fast to it. All at this particular moment only, Mary, his wife, came. She was shocked, and she has reported that the boat was flooded with water. He did not say anything, he did not panic. All of them had trained themselves well for the disasters, so he handed over the wheel to Mary and went in. He brought some hatch covers to cover the gaping holes and simply told Mary to take the wheel. He went in. There was water everywhere. He swam at some places, he crawled, and he reached the place where the children were. In their cabin, he found that they were safe. It was enough for him to see them safe. He could see that Sue's head had banged. She had a bump head, but he did not bother about that. He came up with the canvas and the waterproof covers, spread it over the gaping holes. Then he looked for the other things. The hand pumps had been blocked completely. Even the spare ones had been drenched overboard, so nothing was there. He remembered that there was some electric pump left, and he could get it in order to drain the excess water. Already he noticed that his crewmen were just pumping water madly out of the ship. They were not there to think about anything else but to keep the ship in motion somehow, and so that they may reach a little more before they could stop. He just went to make the mayday calls. The radio signals could not reach anywhere. They were in the remotest part of the world, and he understood nothing could be done. So all that he had to do was to rely on himself and his crew, and they were a perfect match. There was a dire need to save themselves and to land somewhere nearby. Then, of course, there was a tremendous leak. He had managed the electric pump, water was being deflected, and somehow in this particular situation they had survived. They could not eat anything and they could not hoist the sails anymore. The pressure on the rigging would really destroy the boat. Anyway, the respite was short lived. They did eat for some time, and then, of course, the best part was the behavior of the children. The children noticed that they were in difficulty. Death was nearby, it was lurking there. Jonathan simply asked his father, "Daddy, are we going to die?" And he himself added, "We aren't afraid of dying if we can all be together, you and Mummy, Sue and I." His words were magical. The captain could not do anything except to make all-out efforts to fight the sea with everything he had. And then the starboard side had bulged in, everything was floating all around. There were some timbers that were still holding back the ship and the things. Not everything else had been lost. Anyway, with the grand crew with him that was continuously pumping out water, Mary was there to hold fast to the wheel, and the children were there to offer him help and support in the form of words or cards. Sue had a head injury, but then instead of complaining, she just made a funny drawing to amuse her parents. As far as the behavior of the elders was concerned, they were trying to fight the sea with all they could. At moments, Captain and his wife gave up hope, but for the sake of children, they were just continuing. And then, when everything went well, the narrator, Captain Cook, realized that he has to check and recheck his calculations. All he wanted now was to reach the pinpricks in the vast ocean. He had located that there was an island nearby, and if they could maintain the speed and if the ship remains in motion, they could reach the island shortly. So with a heavy heart, though he was not very hopeful, he too, after the others had taken rest, retired to his bunk and he fell asleep. When he woke up, he found his children nearby to just praise him, to applaud him and to hug him. He felt that he was not worth it, but then the children took him outside to show him the island they were about to reach. Isle Amsterdam lay before them. He rushed on deck and gazed with relief at the stark outline of Isle Amsterdam, a French scientific base. There was little habitation. There were barely 28 inhabitants, and the next morning he found those 28 inhabitants welcoming them, cheering them ashore. So with the land under his feet again, he was filled with thoughts of his grand crew, Herbie and Larry, who were cheerful and optimistic under the direst stress, his wife Mary, who stayed at the wheel for all those crucial moments, and the children uncomplaining even amidst panic, disaster. Sue had suffered the most. She had to undergo minor operations, but even at that particular moment she did not say anything except to draw funny faces to cheer the parents. So we are not afraid to die if we can all be together. We sense optimism of the children, optimism of the crew, optimism of the captain, and faith in God. So these are the moments, the trying times as we call them, when we feel we must do our utmost and have faith in ourselves and God. History is replete with such things. We cannot forget the Titanic, the grand ship made by a White Line Company. The ship was considered to be unsinkable. Yet, just an iceberg was enough to cause a grand leak in the ship, and we all know what happened to it. Anyway, nature is mightier than men, but on man's part, life cannot be just lived like a coward. Risks have to be borne, difficulties have to be combated, and yet live life to the fullest like Gordon Cook, just like James Cook. Thank you.